Hello, gardeners! Today, we're diving into the world of watermelons. Yes, you heard it right. We're growing watermelons like a pro. Now, I love a good watermelon. It's juicy, it's refreshing, and it's perfect for those hot summer days. And there's nothing quite like growing your own, especially if you can grow some absolute whoppers. So, if you're ready to take your gardening game to the next level and impress your friends and family with your watermelon growing prowess, then grab yourself a cup of your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's get started. First things first, we need to choose the right watermelon variety. Now, if you're after giant watermelons, you can't just go with any old seed packet. You need to choose varieties that are known for their size and yield. Some top contenders in the giant watermelon category include Carolina Cross, Black Diamond, and Jubilee. These heirloom varieties have been known to produce some seriously impressive watermelons, some even weighing over 100 pounds. Can you imagine that? 100-pound watermelon? That's bigger than my youngest. Now, when choosing your seeds, it's always a good idea to check the packet for information on the expected size of the fruit. This will give you a good idea of what you're in for and how much space you'll need in your garden. And remember, bigger isn't always better. If you're short on space or simply don't need a monster watermelon, there are plenty of smaller varieties that are just as delicious. Just look for varieties like Sugar Baby or Golden Midget. The key here is to do your research and choose a variety that suits your needs and your garden space. And don't be afraid to experiment with different varieties to find your favorites. So, head down to your local garden center or browse online for some watermelon seeds and get ready to grow some giants. Now that you've chosen your watermelon variety, it's time to get those seeds in the ground. Watermelons are warm season crops, so timing is everything. You want to make sure that you're planting them after all danger of frost has passed and the soil has warmed up. In most areas, this means planting your seeds directly outdoors in late spring or early summer. But if you live in a cooler climate with a shorter growing season, you can get a head start by starting your seeds indoors about 4 to 6 weeks before your last expected frost date. When it comes to planting depth, watermelon seeds like to be sown about an inch deep in the soil. You can plant them in rows or hills. Just make sure that you space them out adequately to allow for plenty of growth. Speaking of space, watermelons need a lot of it. These sprawling vines can grow up to 20 feet long, so it's important to give them plenty of room to roam. I recommend spacing your plants about 6 feet apart in rows that are 8 feet apart. And don't forget to water those little seeds in well after planting. You want to keep the soil consistently moist but not waterlogged, as this can lead to rot. So find a sunny spot in your garden, get your hands dirty, and let's get those watermelon seeds planted. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about soil preparation. Watermelons are heavy feeders, so they need rich, fertile soil to thrive and produce those giant fruits. Before planting, it's essential to prepare your soil properly by removing any weeds, rocks, or debris. You want to create a nice, loose, and well-draining bed for your watermelons to grow in. To give your soil a nutrient boost, incorporate plenty of organic matter like compost or aged manure. This will not only provide essential nutrients, but also improve soil structure and drainage. Just spread a nice thick layer over your planting area and work it into the top few inches of soil. You can also give your soil an extra boost by adding a balanced organic fertilizer. Look for a fertilizer that's specifically formulated for melons or vegetables, and follow the instructions on the packaging for application rates. Remember, healthy soil equals healthy plants, so don't skimp on this crucial step. By taking the time to prepare your soil properly, you'll be setting your watermelon plants up for success and ensuring a bountiful harvest of juicy, delicious melons. Watermelons, as their name suggests, are incredibly thirsty plants. They need a consistent supply of water, especially during the hot summer months. But it's not just about how much you water, it's also about when and how you water. Deep, infrequent watering is key for encouraging strong root development. So instead of giving your plants a little sprinkle every day, aim for a good soak once or twice a week, depending on your climate and rainfall. A good rule of thumb is to water deeply enough to moisten the soil to a depth of about 6 inches. You can check this by sticking your finger into the soil. If it feels dry, it's time to water. Along with consistent watering, your watermelons will also benefit from regular feeding. These hungry plants need plenty of nutrients to support their vigorous growth and fruit production. I recommend using a balanced organic fertilizer every few weeks throughout the growing season. Again, look for a fertilizer that's specifically formulated for melons or vegetables and follow the instructions on the packaging. And here's a little tip: avoid getting the leaves wet when you water, as this can promote fungal diseases. Instead, water at the base of the plant, directly around the root zone. By mastering the art of watering and feeding, you'll be well on your way to growing some seriously impressive watermelons. Now, for those beautiful watermelon flowers to transform into those big, juicy melons we all love, they need a little help from our buzzing friends, the bees. But sometimes, especially if you live in an urban area or don't have a lot of pollinators around, you might need to give Mother Nature a helping hand. That's where hand pollination comes in. Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. First, you need to be able to identify the male and female flowers. The male flowers are smaller and appear first, while the female flowers have a small, immature fruit at their base. Once you've identified your flowers, simply take a small paintbrush or cotton swab and gently swirl it inside the male flower to collect pollen. Then transfer that pollen to the stigma, the sticky center part of the female flower. It's as easy as that. Repeat this process for several flowers on each plant to ensure good pollination and fruit set. And who knows, you might even enjoy playing bee for a day. Now, this next tip might seem a bit counterintuitive, but trust me on this one. If you want to grow truly giant watermelons, you need to be prepared to prune. That's right, even though those watermelon vines look like they could take over the world, selectively removing some of the fruits will actually encourage the remaining ones to grow even bigger. Think of it this way: each watermelon plant has a limited amount of energy to put towards fruit production. By removing some of the fruits, you're concentrating that energy into fewer fruits, resulting in larger, sweeter melons. So, how do you know which fruits to prune? Start by removing any fruits that are small, misshapen, or damaged. Then focus on leaving only 1 or 2 fruits per vine, ideally those that are growing vigorously and are well spaced along the vine. Now, I know it can be hard to part with those baby watermelons, but trust me, your taste buds will thank you later when you're biting into a giant, juicy melon that's bursting with flavor. Now let's talk about pest and disease control, because unfortunately, our beloved watermelons aren't immune to the odd garden pest or fungal disease. One of the most common pests you might encounter is the cucumber beetle. These striped little critters love to munch on watermelon leaves, stems, and even the fruits themselves. To keep cucumber beetles at bay, you can try using row covers, which are lightweight fabrics that you drape over your plants to create a physical barrier. You can also try planting companion plants like nasturtiums or marigolds, which are known to deter these pesky insects. Another common problem for watermelons is powdery mildew, a fungal disease that appears as a white powdery coating on the leaves. Powdery mildew can weaken plants and reduce fruit production, so it's important to address it promptly. To prevent powdery mildew, make sure you're providing your plants with good air circulation by spacing them properly and avoiding overhead watering. If you do see signs of powdery mildew, you can try treating your plants with a baking soda spray or a copper fungicide. Remember, prevention is always better than cure, so be vigilant about scouting your plants regularly for any signs of pests or diseases. After weeks of patiently tending to your watermelon plants, the moment of truth has finally arrived: harvest time. But how can you tell when your watermelons are perfectly ripe and ready to pick? Well, there are a few telltale signs to look out for. First, check the tendril closest to the watermelon. If it's dried up and brown, that's a good indication that the melon is ripe. Next, take a look at the underside of the watermelon where it has been resting on the ground. As the watermelon ripens, this spot will turn from white to a creamy yellow color. You can also try thumping the watermelon with your knuckles. A ripe watermelon will have a dull thud sound, while an unripe one will sound more hollow. Once you've harvested your watermelons, give them a good rinse and then store them in a cool, dry place. And then, the best part, slice one open and enjoy the fruits of your labor. There's nothing quite like biting into a juicy, homegrown watermelon on a hot summer day. It's the perfect reward for all your hard work. So there you have it, everything you need to know to grow your own giant watermelons. I hope you found this video helpful and that you're feeling inspired to get out there and get your hands dirty. Remember, growing your own food is not only incredibly rewarding, but it's also a great way to connect with nature and enjoy fresh, healthy produce.